Hey folks, it's a gorgeous autumn day here and the sun is shining, and I just had to come out and play with my plants a little bit before the weather turns cold. Now you could see that I have a range of houseplants on this table, and I've been meaning to do a couple projects with these. This is a beautiful epipremnum that I had that is growing in the meadow house. It's a little tad dusty, I would say. And you can see I have this Play-Doh clay type thing. It was made by Gorilla Glue. You can see I'm pulling it off right here now. And this is something that I had stuck to the wall, and I think it would have maybe worked better from an execution standpoint if we didn't have clay on our walls. But we have clay on our walls as opposed to drywall and paint. And so after this plant started to get a little bit too heavy and big, I was trying to basically train it up onto the wall. It just kind of fell down. And I was a bit bummed because I think we've all been in the situation. You try to grow a plant up on your wall and it doesn't want to grow up on it. And then all of a sudden you go and you see your Syndapsis pictus elsewhere and it's growing up where it's not supposed to. I've had that happen, or they miraculously start growing up on the wall and you didn't expect them to. This one was just not having it, and I was hoping to see some more of those, less of the juvenile leaves on this epipremnum and like just have it climbing up on the wall, but sometimes plants have their own plan. So I figured I will just probably use this a nice jewel-like trellis here that I just got in, and I was waiting for these, but they were just back ordered. And you can see it's this beautiful kind of twig-shaped circular brass trellis. Yeah, and I'm gonna probably use that to grow the plant around as an alternative. And my mom even stayed in the little house and she was like looking at some of these tendrils, and you know, oftentimes these will start to snake and snake and snake until they actually find something adequate to grow up on. Or sometimes they'll go into the cracks and crevices of your house and or behind like a dresser or something of that nature, and then they turn white all of a sudden. But my mom was recommending, why don't you just chop these off and keep it a little bit more fuller? And I think I'm probably going to agree with her and take some of these off and maybe root them elsewhere. And then I have something that I have mentioned multiple times on this channel, Philodendron tortum. And this is one that I have adored from afar, in stores, in people's homes. This is just a small one. I picked it up at Logie's greenhouses in Connecticut. Really nice specimen. Nothing too spectacular about it. It's quite small, but I've always loved it. I've loved the new leaves unfurling on Philodendron tortum. And then if you recall earlier when I did a tour of the meadow house and some of the plants in there, I had brought in a Hoya sunrise. And that one I got over the winter months, and it basically just was not healthy. The person who had sent it, it wasn't really well rooted. They sent it during a cold period, and the plant was just freezer burned essentially in the mail. And so I got this beautiful philodendron, Hoya sunrise from Logie's, and I'm planning on planting that up. Now it is fall, so I am going to fertilize my plants as well. But I just want to get started on this. I'll be like repotting some, fertilizing some, and just creating some beautiful jewels in the plants. So here we go. I'm just going to start putting this in. Clipping, again, I'm going to clip this off. And you could obviously just like compost this, but I think I'm going to use it as a way to just restart the plant. And I'm going to take some of the longer tendrils like this, and I'm just gonna start to curve around this beautiful brass decorative trellis of sorts. And I've been meaning to have some of these. I mean, brass and copper are kind of like the fixtures within the meadow house. And when I saw this, I picked it up at Terrain. So if you're looking for this specific product, then that's where I actually got it. But it took months to come in, actually. So yeah, just something like that. I want to see if it's kind of middle of the pot, but I don't want to penetrate any of the roots. Take off some of these old leaves as well. Yeah, this weather, oh, it's amazing. We had a really rainy week, and any chance I get to come outside, and even if it's not just the plants outdoors, but the plants indoors. Now, if I cut this, it'll start a new growth point, and it could get bushier as opposed to length. So I think that's not a bad option as well. Okay, I'm gonna bring this through. And maybe it'll like it better kind of trellising around, we'll see. I like leaving some of it long and, you know, having it kind of trail, but as soon as it starts to trail too much, you'll see that it goes like this, unless it gets something to grow up on, like a moss pole or an adequate part of your wall. This is like simple enough. And I'm going to fertilize this. I'm using an indoor fertilizer, which is basically Espoma's indoor fertilizer, organic fertilizer, and it's 222, so that means N, P, and K. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium is at a lower concentration. And normally if I do a synthetic fertilizer or whatnot, then I would reduce it quite substantially in the fall months because the plant won't be growing very much. If anything, it'll start putting more energy in towards its roots. But I don't have any grow lights actually in the meadow house at this stage. I might choose to do so, but in the fall and winter months, it's actually quite dim in the house. But these plants have been growing there now for about 2 years. I'm gonna leave this kind of hanging over like that because I kind of like some of that growing over the wall. And yeah, I think that's pretty attractive actually, right there. I'm gonna move this back like that. That was easy enough. All right, so I think what's next, my philodendron tortum is not gonna have any kind of jewels, but I am going to add some potting medium in here. Now I'm just using Espoma's cactus mix, which has a nice selection of kind of like this perlite, so it's nice and well draining. And I'm going to move this into here, just like that. Let's take a look at the roots. And you can see they're circling around a little bit, but not too badly. So I'm just gonna tease those out, and they'll be probably pretty pleased that I'm giving it a bit more room. Although when I went to Mobot, which is where the largest aroid collection is, a lot of their plants are in very small vessels. So I wouldn't be surprised if this could be quite pot bound. I'll leave about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of space from the top lip of this planter. That way, particularly when you're indoors, when you water, you're not gonna water onto wherever this plant is, which may be on your dresser or on a windowsill. This will be on a windowsill, and it will be west facing. And as always, in the fall and winter months, as it gets a little bit colder, in these parts at least, it might not get cold in your parts, depending on where you're watching from. I always have to be mindful about what plants are around the window areas and if they could get chilled, because some of the windows may be colder, especially if some plants are growing up towards the windows to get the light or the waning light in the season, and all of a sudden their little leaves are pressed up against the window and they can't stand the cold, and then all of a sudden you have like a little freezer burn on your plants. All right, so this is planted up. Let's fertilize this. And generally you want to water thoroughly all the way down until maybe some of the water comes into the basin. So that way you know that the fresh oxygen is being pulled down through the soil pores and it's getting down to the little rootlets of the plant. And then that way the rootlets could then take up the water and then basically take it to the rest of the leaves. It's a really, really cool system. All right, I got this cute little terracotta pot. And this is where I think I'm gonna plant up this Hoya. And let's see how this is wrapped around here, because I would prefer to have this wrapped around the brass pole. Yep, that was easy enough. Nice succulent leaves, and Hoya Sunrise is that plant where you can't tell right now, but when it's exposed to a lot of sun, it starts to redden up, which is a quality that a lot of folks like because they like to see a color other than green with their plants. I don't know if I'm going to sun stress it enough where it's going to be. I plan to have this, I don't know where I plan to have this. Maybe an eastern window? Okay, let's check out. Roots look good. Nothing is pot bound at all. And it's a little bit longer than expected. So now I'm going to just push down some of the pre-existing substrate that was in there. Add some more and kind of compact it pretty nicely because I am going to have this heavier post in there and I don't want this to topple over. I'd love to hear about what chores that you're doing before the fall season is out. I feel like there's a lot still to do here. Take in some of my citrus, find appropriate places to put them. We're still renovating some of the spaces here, so having plants in a renovation zone is not always ideal. You end up having drywall, dust, and everything else that's associated, that comes with renovations. Okay, so I'm gonna put this, looks very Christmassy actually, you know, with the brass. Looks like a little bit more like deer antlers. So I'm gonna have this, let's see. So yeah, I'm just gonna take it and wrap it around. And we've done a number of houseplant home tours where folks have used like copper wire and other beautiful ways to grow up their plants. And I applaud that. I think that's so innovative and so beautiful, just kind of doing what you have with the products that you have. But when I saw these brass posts and trellises, I was like, oh, so beautiful. Oh yeah, it actually looks good on both sides. I think the side that I was working on maybe looks a little bit more presentable, a little better. Ah, that's great. I'll need a taller one. Okay, so I'm gonna just water this in. And if you see this planter wobbling a little bit, it's partially because I have this low-fired homemade base, which is really pretty, but just so you know, like these bases are not high fired, they crack very easily, so even if you have them outside, and the water will go through this terracotta, it's very porous, and so just make note of that or have some other type of dish that's waterproof underneath it so it doesn't destroy your wooden furniture, for instance, or your sills. Yeah. So I think that's about it. These are the projects that I've been meaning to do, and I'll be doing some other projects as well. I have to do one last fertilizing throughout all of the house and see how the plants have fared over the spring and summer. Bring some of the plants in that had been outside, but otherwise I am totally loving these days to be outside with my hands in the dirt, my hands on plants, feeling that sunlight, getting my vitamin D. It makes me feel healthier and healthier as I get a chance to be out in nature. So thank you again, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye.
Stay tuned on Plant One On Me for more botanical tours, talks, and how-tos. And if you're looking to further your knowledge on the plant kingdom, then have a look at our various online courses from Troubleshoot Your Houseplants to the Houseplant Masterclass. Additionally, we have a second channel called Flock Finger Lakes, where we cover more on outdoor gardening, habitat restoration, agroforestry, and even more. So check that out if that interests you. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next episode.